we'll be looking at bankruptcy filing trends by chapter in the state of Hawaii. To do this, we have about a dozen charts showing bankruptcy activity in the state going back to 1990. All of this filing data comes from the Administrative Office of the United States Courts. Now, this first chart shows total filings by year in the state since 1990. During that time, there have been about 76,000 cases filed, and Hawaii has a different pattern than nearly every other state in filings. There were less than 1,000 back in 1990. This grew slowly in the early 1990s and very rapidly up through 1998, which was the peak year. And nearly every other state in the country, the peak year for filings was 2005. But for some reason in Hawaii, filings went from under 1,000 to almost 6,000, and peaked in 1998. And then after 1998 and early 2000, filings were still very high, but generally decreasing. A big decrease in 2004, and this probably would have continued through 2005, except bankruptcy reform came along, and there's a real surge in filings there. But they fell back to under 1,000 per year in 2006. Another surge in filings through the Great Recession, and then big drop-offs since then. So you can see that over more than 25 years, there have just been several cycles of huge ups and downs in the state, more so than most other places have. Even though right now filings are about where they were back in 1993 or 1994, it's been a pretty tortured path to get there. And certainly filings are only about 30% of where they were near their peak, and well under half of where they were in the years prior to bankruptcy reform. Looking at filings relative to population, over the entire period from 1990 to 2015, Hawaii has been 44% below average. And actually, that's third lowest in the country. Alaska is the perennial leader in low bankruptcy rate, and Vermont is also lower than Hawaii. The highest bankruptcy rates have been in the states colored red, and particularly Tennessee, which is the leader nearly every year. So the bankruptcy rate in Hawaii is only about 1/3 to 1/4 of what it is in Tennessee, relative to population. And looking at this year by year, you see some real variations there. The national is the red columns, and the blue is Hawaii. And so early 1990s, Hawaii had a very, very low rate, and actually was lowest in the country every year from 1990 to 1994. By 1998, they had the rate in Hawaii had gotten very close to the national average, and then has fallen back since then. And since about 2003, the rate in Hawaii has been about 1/3 of the national average. So they have, you can just see the volatility of filings in Hawaii over time is more than most other states. With Chapter 11 filings, there was just this huge, or Chapter 7, there's huge run-up through from 1990 to 1998, then generally a drop-off through 2004, a spike in 2005, then down 80% the next year. Increases as the recession came on, but well below where they were from, say, 1997 to 2003. And then since then, filings have dropped off quite a bit, and right now are about where they were back, say, in 1991 or 1992, but only about 20% of where they were in the peak year in 1998. Chapter 11 filings generally dropped through the 1990s in the state, and that happened pretty much everywhere. Since then, there have been, say, since 2005, generally 15 to 20 uh, Chapter 11 per year. That should be 17 there, not 27. And it looks like 2016 will be on pace for 15 or 20 per year. Chapter 13's, and this is another huge pattern showing huge variations. Under 100 per year in the early 1990s. From 1997 to 2003, we're running around 500 per year. Then another big drop off, and then just a huge spike with the most recent recession, and then have dropped back down. And so nationwide, Chapter 13s are up about 1/3 since 1990. In Hawaii, they are nearly 5 times as high as what they were, even though they're well below where they were at the peak. So there's just huge variation from year to year in both Chapter 7 and Chapter 13 filings in the state. Looking at the percent of cases filed as Chapter 13s, the red line is the national, and it's hugged the 30% line pretty closely for several decades. Some disruption before and after bankruptcy reform, but overall it's been that and kind of trending up a little bit now. With Hawaii, started out throughout most of the 1990s, they're below 10% of cases in the state were Chapter 13s, but this has been trending up and up, and is now is reached 30% and is getting pretty close to the national average. So that Chapter 13s are a bigger part of the caseload there now than before. This chart shows the unemployment rate in Hawaii by quarter compared to the national average. The blue line is Hawaii, and you can see that filings, or unemployment jumped up through the recession, but never got to even 8% in the state, where nationwide the rate reached nearly 10%. And since 2011 2012, both the national and the Hawaii rate have dropped off quite a bit, and now Hawaii is well under 4%, which is a pretty good sign. But anyway, over time, the unemployment rate in Hawaii has been well below what the national is. Now, bankruptcy filings peaked most recently nationwide in the year ended September 30th, 2010. Since then, they've dropped down by nearly one half, by 49%. In Hawaii, the decline has been 61% over time. And you can see that the states colored red have had the highest, the biggest declines, and that includes most of New England and most of Southwest and Alaska and Hawaii too. The smallest declines have been throughout the southeastern United States, and particularly states that have a lot of Chapter 13 cases, where overall the declines have been under 40% in most of them. For some reason, if you look at just the Ninth Circuit compared to the national average, since September 2010, the decline has been average or above average in every one of the states there, and particularly high in California and Nevada. But five of the 9 states in the Ninth Circuit have had 60% or more declines. And overall, the decline in the Ninth Circuit has been 65%, where the rest of the country has only been down 43%. So certainly the western part of the country, bankruptcies have really eased in recent years. Looking at the declines quarter by quarter, the national average has been between 10 and 15% nearly every quarter from, say, 2011 to 2015. And in recent quarters, the rate of decline has slowed down more like in the 5% range. In Hawaii, the blue columns here, for most of 2011 11 to 14, the declines were larger than average, sometimes quite a bit larger than average, and but these have also eased somewhat. And right now we have kind of an unclear pattern of what's going on. In the first 6 months of the year, Hawaii was down about 13%. The third quarter down looks like about 8%. And so it's still one of the states that is having large declines of more than 10%. If we had looked at this chart 2 or 3 years ago, virtually every state would have been colored white in that the decline was over 10%, and there wouldn't have been any red, which are the states that are actually increases. And now we see about a dozen states increasing. I think this will continue. You'll see more and more of these, and in 2017 and 2018, virtually every state would be colored red with some sort of modest increase. I think as far as the outlook, it looks like there'll be about 1,400 cases filed in the state in 2016, about the same in 2017, and maybe small increases in the years after that. I don't see any return to the 5,000 cases per year that Hawaii got in the late 1990s without bankruptcy legislation or something that affects the local economy. And that could be not necessarily tied to a recession on the mainland, but could be something in Asia or affected tourism or something that could push up the bankruptcy rate again. But for right now, there's nothing on the horizon that I see that's likely to really make filings spike there. But certainly over time, Hawaii has shown that the filing rates both up and down are more volatile than in other parts of the country. Well, that concludes our look at bankruptcy filings in Hawaii. For more statistical information and other information on bankruptcy, be sure to visit the newsroom section of the ABI website at www.abi.org.